Welcome to the Untold Tales audio anthologies. Written by Marc Neuffer and narrated by Melissa Del Toro Schaffner. Steamwork Hearts, a Simon Smythe adventure. Simon's Sanctuary. A friend in need and similar platitudes invaded my morning when I read the telegram my man Benson presented me. Seems my old collegiate chum, Mason Marlborough, is in the brine. Yes, that Marlborough, 17th in line to the crown, currently worn by Victoria, our beloved monarch. Scanning the post, I puzzled over the peculiar sentences. H.H. absconded with J.J., hasten Brighton. What ho, Benson? Eyeing the sparse trail of words on the onion-skin parchment, I asked. Have you perused this? Ever the stoic, his sonorous baritone replied. Certainly not, sir. When did this arrive? Perhaps Mason's plea had aged to the point subsequent events rendered it moot. Just now, by velocipede messenger, sir. I read the posting aloud to bring Benson up to date. What do you make of that? Really, a man of his means and position could toss over a shilling for 20 more words, don't you agree? As you say, sir. I noted a modest rise of Benson's right eyebrow, an unusually heady outburst. Statues on the Piccadilly change expression more often than he. It appears the gentleman desires your presence in Brighton, sir. Well deduced, I said. But who is H.H. and what is a J.J.? I won't travel willy-nilly halfway across the kingdom on such a flimsy missive, lacking necessary detail. Benson swooshed open the draperies of my laboratory as if unveiling the Mona Lisa for the first time, while it still held its original allure. I'd spent the full nights working on a problematic mechanism sent over from the Gear Grinders Guild. It proved to be a devilishly complex apparatus belonging to the Archbishop, now scattered in pieces on my work table. The device, no, the clergyman. Silhouetted in a fog nozzle stream of abusive light, Benson offered. Sir, I surmise J.J. is Jocelyn Jameson, Sir Marlborough's betrothed. Betrothed? This nugget cried for unwrapping, so I gave out with, and my man chooses the most urgent occasions to be miserly with important details held inside his prodigious brain, using a teaspoon when a shovel is better suited for delivery. Behind heavy-lidded eyes, Benson provided. Miss Jameson, a comely young heiress, if I may say so, recently arrived from the American colonies. An engagement announcement appeared in Thursday last London Times. A photo of the happy couple accompanied, sir. As I remember, old Mason never exhibited much skill in sustaining affairs of the heart, and since the message concerned a young female of age, it became simple to intuit H.H. referenced Henry Harrison. Without promise or posy, the bounder can snatch the tastiest biscuit from a basket faster than any rogue I've encountered in my 30 years. That list includes my carefree bachelor familiars at the Crocs Club, who make sport by waylaying other members' fair acquaintances as jolly pranks. Throughout Greater London, no gentleman's mistress is safe who entered that scallywag Henry's satiric orbit. Staring at my unfinished breakfast of jam toast, kippers, and coffee, I permitted time for the scales to settle. Though Mason was an Eton and Oxford classmate, I'd not heard from him in 2 years, as our social circles held only slight overlap. Facing the scrap pile, I checked my mental calendar, finding nothing of greater import or intrigue. I arrived at a decision. Joining Mason at the seaside might prove a refreshing change, Benson. Make preparations for us on the evening train, if you please. As you say, sir. Shall I draw you a bath? If you will, please. Very good, sir. I'd purposefully neglected to read aloud the last 2 words of the telegram. Bring B.B. Bring Bertram Benson, indeed. What right-minded gentleman travels without his valet? As my man took to his assignments, I considered the pile of gears, pinions, springs, sliders, and levers, having mind to sweep the entire collection into the dustbin. After a leisurely soak in my steaming sandalwood-scented claw-footed cauldron, I dressed in proper travel garments chosen and laid out by Benson. Returning to the laboratory for my implement valise, I found the object of my night's confoundment, assembled and in full function. Damn that man Benson, worth his weight and all that. London streets. Having achieved 8 blocks towards the railway station in our hired steamer cab, an unsettling thought rudely bruised my consciousness. We must turn back. I've forgotten to shut off the gas. Benson's flat reply mingled with the piston clatter and valve hiss of the carriage motor. Allay your concern, sir. I took measures to ensure your laboratory does not explode. Again. My man has the uncanny ability to induce cringeworthy embarrassment at my minor missteps without seeming to pass judgment one might lay a finger on. When our conveyance halted at a lane crossing to await a coal wagon's passage, Benson and I turned to find the source of boisterous shouting and footfall approaching our position. Out of an abundance of precaution, my loyal Sancho Panza drew his waistcoat pistol. The choke of swells, dollymops, and street urchins parted for a gang of billy boys, overtaking a genteel lady, one not of the common stamp. Her right hand high-gathered her skirts, exposing the tops of her 9-buckle boots to every dandy taking his leisure. In her other, she clutched a carpet bag, unwilling to discard it in favor of a faster stride. A tap of my cane opened the side door, inviting the young lady to enter our sanctum. On her approach, I extended a hand. When she hoisted aboard, Benson slapped the partition between the driver and passenger seating, giving a hearty command, "Coachman, drive on, make haste," which was acted on with full-throttle vigor. Our raven-haired guest took the seat across from me. Without hesitation or introduction, she snapped open her satchel and withdrew a silver-netted purple glass globe. Exhibiting the aim of a champion cricket bowler, she tossed the valuable out the window toward the pursuing pack. Upon impacting cobblestones 20 yards distant, a cloud of smoke erupted, which, judging by the mob's reaction, contained powerful and noxious elements. Settling back, she remarked, "Thank you, sirs, for your kind rescue. I apologize for my disheveled state." I began sinking into the most striking cerulean eyes, punctuating an alluring face. Not seeing a ring of wedded condition, I supplied an opening. "I believe you've misplaced your parasol, miss." In rare occurrence, Benson interrupted with a gentle cough. "Sir, allow me to introduce Miss Drusilla Duncan, apothecary and amateur artificer." Nodding towards me, he added, "Miss Duncan, your paladin is my employer, Sir Simon Smythe, master technomancer." Surprises multiplied. "You know this lady?" I asked. As if this were an everyday occurrence, while engaged in a morning stroll, he replied, "Quite so, sir." "Master technomancer?" she inquired, chin lowered, eyes leveled at me. With a head bow, I informed, "More of an honorary title, I assure you, Miss Duncan." A schoolboy's flush rose in the presence of this charmer's gaze. "Dear sir, please call me Drusilla." Those piercing blues handcuffed me, yet I found the wherewithal to say, "And do me the pleasure of calling me Simon." While I confirmed inventory of this prime ambassador of the fairer sex, Benson placed his revolver on his lap and reached into her open bag. With a gentle touch, he withdrew a midnight black feline, holding it eye to eye as if in silent conversation. Her voice flowed as warm honey water for a parched throat, her eyes dancing with smoldering intrigue. "Another introduction is in order," Drusilla said. "Meet my pussycat, Pie Wacket." The cat's head swiveled 180 degrees in my direction, blinking in languorous fashion as if bored by the state of the world. I reached forward to stroke the mouser, noticing its peepers were the same glowing hue as its mistress. "Careful, dear sir," she warned. "Kitty has claws." "Meow, I bet she does," came to mind as I immodestly studied our passenger from hairpin to heel. Her warning did not extend to Benson, as the fierce thing affectionately stroked its tail under my man's chin. Spell broken, I pointed to Drusilla's open bag, giving question to the several stacks of large denomination banknotes. Noticing my interest, she provided. "I withdrew these funds from an illegal financial institution." That set me back in my seat. "You robbed the exchequer." Benson remained, as always, unmoved. "Unlatched from criminal elements," she corrected. "Profits an enforcer gang gained through larceny, extortion, and other nefarious employments, dear sir." "Your profession seems most lucrative," I said. Glancing port and starboard out the carriage windows, she enlightened me. "What I recover is dispersed to the needful throughout Lower London." Bold as well as beautiful, this one. My bachelor's confirmation further wavered in this fetching heroine's presence. I belatedly offered, "May we drop you off at a place of your convenience?" Fingers better suited to the pianoforte than burglary, withdrew a portfolio from the depths of her bag. I wouldn't be surprised if she pulled an elephant from that cornucopia. Tapping the corner of the folded leather pouch to her bottom lip. Ah, those ruby lips. She seemed to consider whether to cross the Rubicon. Having chosen, she handed me the dispatch case, saying, "I take the chance your association with Bertie means you're an honorable man." While we held opposite ends of the mystery, she continued, "During my skulking, I discovered this in the safe of Gangmaster Roland Reeves. There's a grand conspiracy afloat, one to shake the pillars of the Empire. It's unknown who's to be trusted." On her last word, she released her light grip. A boisterous ear twitch announced Benson's surprise on hearing the name Roland Reeves. I lifted the flap to look inside. It held a dozen or so small papers and one larger document. After 15 seconds of perusing the latter, which appeared to be a criminal enterprise compact, I handed it to Benson while I took inventory of the remaining contents. I fanned out an assortment of quarter-paper slips, finding scatterings of nonsensical words and geometric drawings. Coded, no doubt. Benson, a more studious sort, reviewed the large document for 2 minutes before declaring, "Miss Duncan, this is quite volatile information. If certain elements are aware this is in your possession, might I suggest we repair to Sir Simon's domicile for your safety?" I swallowed that impertinent invitation before seeing the wisdom and perhaps heady possibilities. Drusilla's eyes widened. "Why, Bertie, I haven't a thing to wear." Her giggle and his raised eyebrows fumigated the carriage. When the outburst settled, I asked, "Have you another location in mind?" "Yes, I need to shed this corset and crinoline costume so I might breathe freely again." "Bertie? I never heard one sufficiently brave to use that diminutive when addressing Bertram Benedict Benson, especially a miss 20 years his junior." Drusilla's domain. In the evening dusk, as lamplighters were about their employment, our carriage wheeled into a patrician avenue lined with stately poplars. We halted in front of an iron gate 3-story brownstone where Benson finally leapt out to ease Drusilla's exit. "Your father's London house?" Benson said, more in a statement than question. I detected hints of melancholy bitters when she replied, "Of my papa's holdings, the only part that came to me in his will. All else fell to my half-brother, though I am the eldest." Another layer exposed, bringing surety a score more remained to be unpeeled. A most pleasant thought, that unpeeling. I followed Benson and Drusilla through the gated portico and up the steps to windowless double doors. Without need for a knock, the right-hand door swung open, exposing a matronly plumpness akin to many a grandmother I've encountered. "Chocolate pie," said Drusilla to the guardian. It seemed a bit early in the evening for such a heavy confection. I then observed the mum sure-handedly swing up a short and scatter gun, passing it to Drusilla in exchange for the money bag. A byword. Layers. Yes, delicious chocolate layers. By way of introduction, nodding to the plump oldster, Drusilla said, "Mattie Manningtree, my housekeeper." A silent young maid stepped out behind the door to accept our outer coats, gloves, and hats. "Thank you, Hilda. If you please, make night accommodations for the gentlemen." Drusilla escorted us to the library, promising to return shortly. Once the doors were drawn closed, I turned to Benson. "What ho! Fill in the blanks, my good man." Standing rigid as Lot's wife, he held forth. "Sir, some years ago I served Miss Duncan's uncle until his earned rest. In that service I became acquainted with the entire cousin brood. As a child, Miss Duncan was one to lead tree-climbing parties and, shall I say, other untraditional escapades about the estates. While accompanying her father on archaeological expeditions, she received education from a Cambridge tutor. I believe she became knowledgeable in the apothecary arts while in Egypt." "Cambridge, you say?" "Yes, sir." "Well, if you can't have an Oxford man, Cambridge will do in a pinch, I should think." "As you say, sir. Shall I inform Sir Mason you will not be attending his situation?" "What? Oh, yes. Send off a telegram. Tell him... what should I say so as not to offend? I have it. Send, sorry old man, otherwise engaged, unable to arrive Brighton. That should do it, don't you think?" "Engaged, sir." "Right. Not the best word for him just now. Say employed." "As you say, sir." While Benson made his jottings, I used the library's reading table to spread out the papers from Drusilla's messenger pouch, attempting to bring some measure of order to it all. "Look here, Benson. Most of this pile is cryptic code and unannotated diagrams. The uncoded document gives notice of criminal danger afoot, but lacks particulars of who, what, where, and when." "Surely a puzzle, sir." Picking up a scrap, he glanced briefly, then stated, "I believe this may be a list of names or perhaps a dinner menu, though I propose the former. Each line has 3 words, the middle being a single letter. An initial, I surmise, sir?" It was at that moment I jumped out of my boots when Pye Wackett leapt into the center of the gathered papers. That panther circled, seeming to study the collection before pawing at a pair of diagram pieces, as if to find a fit-up. Satisfied, it bounded away. As Benson and I made small progress ordering the evidence, the drawing-room door slid apart. All thoughts of puzzle-solving flew up the chimney when Drusilla, her hair loosely gathered at the nape of her neck, appeared in a white silk blouse, tan jodhpurs, and burgundy velvet boots. Her proximity sent a sword through my chest, unleashing a stampede of carnal thoughts. It took some seconds to corral those beasts, lest I melt like jamboree jelly in July. When the thundering hooves in my heart settled to a less raucous state, I absorbed her words. "Your trunk is in my laboratory. The remainder of your luggage waits in your rooms, prepared for the night." Most casually, she mentioned, "Simon, your room is next to mine." By Jove, how can I concentrate with that scratching at my brain? After hours of informed guesswork and Benson's liberal use of the library's reference books, I felt ready to put the coded messages through my computational clacker for decryption. I held no illusion it would prove a fast solution when I connected the unit's hose to the steam piping in Drusilla's laboratory. It might clatter all night, searching for the key to unlock the code. At midnight, we halted, having exhausted our brain power and Benson's considerable knowledge. Hilda showed my man to his room, while Drusilla escorted me, with honor guard Pye Wackett in attendance. She swept her hand at the suite's bathroom door, as if exposing an ancient wonder. Donning a fetching smile, she said, "Don't fall asleep in there. The tub is spacious enough for two, and one might easily drown in a warm, watery slumber." Unbidden, a remembered image of Botticelli's Birth of Venus formed behind my eyes. I realized her innocent entendres were of practiced design, intended to jostle the male's naturally superior position. Both can play at that game. I peered past her into the tile and polished brass facility. "Ah," I mused, stroking my chin. "Perhaps 3, if the 2 maidens are sufficiently petite." Unabashed, she sashayed to her boudoir through the connecting door with a "Sleep well, sir," tossed over her shoulder. I wasn't so tired I didn't admire the pluck of her testing. I'd leveled the playing field. After sipping the whiskey and soda Benson delivered to my night table, slumber came with a measure of satisfaction. No person need rise startled from the depth of dreams by a pair of illuminated eyes floating inches from one's face. Though the same brilliant color as Drusilla's, the pupils were the devil's own. That ghost of a CAT can walk through walls. I sat bolt upright when a welling awareness descended with the obvious solution, a 3-letter replacement cipher. In a half jiffy, I raced downstairs to the library. The gears and levers of my clacker churned away no closer to conclusion than on the first turn of the wheel. In minutes, the new adjustments on the key panel gave up the code we needed for action. Needing more brain power, I awoke Benson and directed the night maid to request Drusilla's attendance in the library. While not superiorly experienced in suddenly awakened women's configuration, I highly approve if this lady's presentation proves a standard. Mentally groping, the word I landed on was stunning, simply stunning. Tugging my robe further closed, I felt like a stubble-faced, barefooted gutter bum in comparison. "Sleep well?" she asked. I was tempted to remark on finding Pye Wackett as a bedfellow, and that cat mewing in my face, when Hilda rolled in the breakfast trolley. "Quite well," I said. "And you?" "Yes, many an energetic dream." Pleasantries over, we turned to business. Drusilla and I began the process. She, in a soft lounge some 10 feet from me, thank God, called out a code letter, and I scribed the corresponding, creating 3 26-letter columns. It became a simple matter of applying the letters in correct order. Having our solutions and revelation of a short fuse fizzling, Benson employed himself, climbing the library's ladders, examining this book and that. The diagrams were another conundrum altogether, until Benson leaned in. "Sir, I believe those half-triangles on the document edges are registration marks. If you—" "Just so, old man," I exclaimed, the pieces joined to perfection. But what the devil was it? While I took vantage from one side of the table, Drusilla took the opposite perspective, craning my neck this way and that. All I achieved was gathering soreness in my upper vertebrae. "This may be of some value, sir." The considerable thing of gilded edges and leather bindings was firmly tucked under his arms, as if held by a rugby wingman. "I remember seeing similar etchings in the Admiralty Museum, sir." I tried to hide my stumble when he laid the weighty tome in my hands. "Page 247, I believe, sir." When I cracked open the book, Drusilla said, "Benson, you're a national treasure." Provided a compliment, I sometimes wonder if my man feels like a zookeeper being offered bananas by baboons. "Thank you, madam. It is my pleasure to serve." "Yes, however," said I, "we have little time, and I see no means by which to pass the Queen's guards. An exchange of glances passed between Benson and Drusilla. Tapping a map of London, the lady said, "There are avenues unseen, known to certain guilds." She traced a line from our location to the place of interest to us. With a sigh, she said, "With time being short, we have need for allies." Ever the muted resource, Benson gave a slight cough. "If I may, sir, some of my patriotic professional similars might be enlisted to the cause." London Labyrinth. With shoulder-slung rucksacks and wearing workman's rough clothing, Drusilla and I waited in the basement of Old Bailey for our escort de jour. A clatter announced his arrival from behind a row of boilers. The smudge-faced chap appeared to have been trolled backwards through a coal scuttle. He gave Drusilla a hi-ho hand sign of recognition and the gimlet eye to me. I suspect he, or his, had previously been recipient of her charity largesse. As arranged payment for services, I handed over 10 quid before we ducked into a tunnel-dank thickness of rust and mildew. It had fallen to Drusilla and myself to go into these depths if success were to be made, while Benson canvassed for assistance above. Trundling ahead, the tunnel Tommy cleared our way of fairy-laced arachnid gauze. One ropey web we passed snugly held the desiccated remains of a rat, sufficiently sized to fill a roasting platter. I kept trust those furry frights were not unionized and would scurry away at our approach. After several twists, turns, and more twists, our guide drew up short. "Locked from the other side, miss," he said, facing a rusty grate. "We'll have need to make a long detour." "Confound it, man," I said. "We can't absorb further delays." Speculating he'd been paid a considerable sum to waylay us, my hand located the grip of Benson's pistol. "Master key," Drusilla said, withdrawing a ropey blue yarn from her apothecary satchel, then twisting the material around the hinge pins top and bottom. Slipping on dark-tinted goggles, she directed, "Avert your eyes." I heard a match strike, then the sound of boiling incendiary, followed by the hissing drip of molten metal. In seconds, a resounding clank echoed from here to Westminster. Turning back, I saw the gateway open, hatch plate lying on the deck. "Woven tungsten, sodium, and magnesium dioxide," she informed. I made note to pursue serious study of alchemy. 30 minutes expired before we came to another halt. "There you be, then, neat as Nelly, just up this ladder," said our guide. "You be needing this to open the manhole," he said, handing me a T-wrench. "Up you go now, sir." Through the decoding, we discovered the criminal mob was desirous of having the Queen's own airship, Britannia. That floater has more armament and capacity than any other in the Royal Fleet, and can start or end a war by its singular presence. It was that Leviathan, resting in its docking cradle above us. Benson correctly surmised one of the coded ships was a list of high-ranking names. Several were of the court, parliament, and industry captains who would profit nicely if a war started. Failure on our part would lead to a deadly continental conflict, and immediately shorter lives for us. Boarding the behemoth. Sliding the manhole cover aside sufficient to push up my hand periscope, I checked our path secure from observation. Once in the docking scaffold, our disguise as stevedores should hold off any curiosity, unless examined at close quarters. Drusilla's beauty would be evident to the casual observer, no matter how scruffed her appearance. Moving towards the bow, we located the access hatch below the bridge. I've had many a fine shave at the tonsorial parlor, but was not desirous of having one any closer when we heard 2 of Roland's minions approaching. I pulled Drusilla around a corner, into a darkened alcove. My heart sped, my pistol raised, sure it would come to needful service. The men's steps came closer, then stopped. Whispers and foot shuffles stirred my blood as I gave need to step out with a bluff. I took a steadying breath, then let it out when the rogues turned, retracing their path. I made move to step back, giving Drusilla space to breathe. Hands clutched my lapels and dragged me fully against my companion. On her toes, she pulled herself upward, bringing our faces close. Her fingers traced my jawline, engaging me in a long, too-short kiss. Pleasant, dizzying shock froze me from topsail to keel. Releasing me, she whispered, "It's nice to find a man who can rise to the occasion." In a manner of telling we belonged aboard, we took the nearest stairway to the next level at a relaxed pace. Arriving on the main deck, 50 feet from the bridge, a renegade more intelligent than a bent coal bucket called out, "You there! Stop and identify!" He intended to say more when Drusilla tossed one of her green globes in his direction. "Don't breathe," she ordered me. I held mine, but our challenger did not, immediately crumpling after taking in the invisible vapors. We sprinted to the open bridge hatch. Inside, I stopped long enough to tuck in my revolver, needing 2 hands to bar it shut with the security lever. When I turned, a youngish man in natty +4s and a sporting cap held a gun pointed at Drusilla. A ruddy flush rose in the man's face. "You!" he boomed. "You little gutter-snipe thief!" "My dear brother, if you shoot me, you'll never find your money," he spat. "Sister, I won't shoot you, but your partner will certainly lose his meager life. You have lost, and we shall show the world!" "Oh, bother it all," Drusilla said, shooting the wag, truncating his obligatory villainous soliloquy before he'd gotten up steam in his boiler. "Tranquilizer dart," she said for my edification. Then, smiling, she added, "Half, brother." I gave Roland's slumbering form a nudge with my boot. Not so formidable now. We began disabling the airship controls with pry bars and saws, cutting cables and bashing anything fragile. Within minutes, the bridge door reverberated with blows from the other side. In between, we heard loud demands of, "Open up." "Not likely," I called out. "The latch seems stuck. Come back tomorrow, old boy." It wouldn't be long before the bounders broke through. I took to the starboard station and Drusilla to the portside controls. Prying up a third panel, I heard Drusilla say, "You can stop now." She looked out the bridge window to something below. Were we too late? Had we failed in our sabotage? Coming to her side, I took in the scene below, spying my man Benson leading a small army of black-tie, bowler-hatted gentlemen's gentlemen up the boarding ramp. The number carried all manner of cudgel, rope, and firearm. Startled screams and bellows to starboard drew my attention to that quarter. Roland's cadres were abandoning ship and jumping from scaffolds to avoid a swarm of what appeared to be every angry alley cat in London. "Pyewacket," I murmured. "Claws indeed." Yes, claws indeed. Brighton Beach denouement. Drusilla's intoxicating presence had not diminished in the week following our escapade, glowing deep in my heart, finding a home. I fear I might have need to walk the matrimonial plank. Languishing in our sweet-soaking tub at the Brighton Pier Hotel, a pleasant purr escaped Drusilla's lips as she leaned forward. "Lower, if you please. Just a touch, dear." Her posture before me presented tantalizing curves Rubens would reject out of hand. I applied the soapy sponge to her back, lingering longer than necessary. Exercising extreme self-discipline to hold my animal instinct in check, having previously failed this morning. Twice. We saved the Empire from an unnecessary war, and the Crown was quite generous in our reward. In her royal intoxication, the Queen wanted to bestow a knighthood on Benson for his defense of the realm. To the Prime Minister's great relief, he declined the honor. Too restrictive and lofty for him, Benson claimed. I had plans to let my man make his own path, even offering him my share of the royal funds. He turned away my idea, claiming no other employment could yield such vigorous stimulation as could be found pulling me out of the occasional sticky wicket. Not the way he put it, but that was the core of it. Several days ago, I spotted Benson and the housemaid Hilda strolling arm in arm along the boardwalk. Perchance he may yet shift his rudder. Continuing to sponge, I asked, "This week has been sublime. But what, or rather, where to next? London isn't fit for summering." Drusilla turned to face me, causing soapy waves to crest upon my chest. Tilting her head, she asked, "Whatever became of Sir Mason's plight? You never said." Plight? His failed engagement? I surmised the young lady came to her senses and felt a return home order. In what way? Sir Mason is quite a catch. Catch? He has some, how should I say, peculiarities. He may stay uncaught for decades before he becomes terminally engaged. It's a sport. I've met several of his fiancées over the years. Her delightful purr asked, "Have you ever been to the Southern American continent? I understand the shamans of High Peru make interesting concoctions." A pleasant voyage with the vicuñas and vaqueros at the other end flitted through my imagination, including a note to see if Benson is prone to sea illness. A gentleman must always have his valet close at hand. Thank you for listening. We love our listeners, fans, patrons, and supporters. We'd like to hear from you and let us know what you think. The best way to do that is to subscribe on our website, untold-tales.com. We want to make sure that we are creating stories and an experience that you're enjoying. So subscribe on our website. That'll put you on our email list. Again, thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.